It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 6, Episode 11. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
Hey, what's going on?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, how are you, sir? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, sir. I am doing wonderful. It is a new year, new me. Sure, let's go with that. Yeah, man, I'm doing well. Thank you. How about you? Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. I'm doing great. I guess you can't say new year, new me. You know, you can't say one without the other, at least for the first couple weeks. It's kind of like embedded in everybody's new year, new me. I don't know who you're trying to convince more, everyone else or yourself.
Yeah, but come around February, you go, Happy New Year, old me.
Old me. I liked old me. And if anybody's listened to the show, they know I don't like change. So I'm going to stick with the old me. It's been working.
100%.
It's been working 100%. All these years. Well, kind of working, you know what I mean? New
Sometimes
year, still work in progress.
Tweaks.
That should be the thing. New year, still work in progress.
There you go. Yes, there you go. I like that.
You know?
That's good. I like that. Yeah. That's good.
It's kind of like this business. It's a work in progress.
Oh.
You know, before we went on air, we were talking about topics that we're going to cover in the second half of the season, because technically that's where we're at. Like, if we're doing 20, 22 episodes, whatever it is, we're at the halfway mark. Didn't we just start this?
We are at the halfway mark.
Yeah. You know, but here we are, new year, another season, second half. But yeah, we've been talking about some of the other topics, and some of them I think we're holding off to see how the industry starts to really give its feedback. Like, some of them are still at the cusp of it. It's kind of weird. How much of an impact is it going to have, or isn't it going to have an impact? Who knows? Like to see it before it happens.
Yeah, and there have been a few times, even when we talked about, like, we had touched on, venues taking a cut of merch, when we decided that we were going to talk about the season, it's already changed twice. Like, yeah, we go, okay, we'll talk about it, then by the time sometimes we get to it, it's already changed. So.
It's already changed. It's crazy. And again, I mean, we're talking about some of this stuff having happened on the higher levels, the higher tiers, the national levels, but that stuff will trickle down.
Yeah.
Though I've played nationally, I'm not a national band in that definition. However, I've played plenty of venues where they tell you they're getting a cut of your merch. And I've made a decision not to sell merch, or I'm selling merch at a pop-up stand on a bar stool type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's
out
like
in the car after the show.
Right. It's like literally what we're doing what the scalpers do, the t-shirt scalpers at shows. What do you want? You want a t-shirt? All right, look, meet me in the back. I'll give you. You know what I mean? You got cash, right? That kind of thing. It's kind of crazy. I mean, it sounds funny when you say it, but you're looking around going, all right, we got to make sure nobody, because I mean, $10 and they want 20% of it. I mean, well, that's killing you. That's killing any profit margin that you may have. And sometimes 100%. There's no profit margin unless you got stuff off the back of a truck.
Yeah. A little while ago, I had seen an artist, and the person escapes me. I'm not familiar with the band, a metal band. And I think he was on stage, kind of ranting and raving about the venue, because the venue wanted 25% of the merch, I think he said. And he's like, I think they were on like a package. And he was like, that's why you won't see our merch out there, in the concourse, because, I'm not making you guys, my fans, pay 25% extra because the venue wants to. 25%, bro.
I know, that's a lot.
20%'s a lot. Now you're asking 25? Like, what are you, like, you people are crazy, man. Crazy.
That is nuts. Well, you're hearing now, like, when venues, if you're working out deals to play at venues, they'll go, we let the bands keep 100% of their merch. Like, that's a selling point for them now. And like,
they have to let you know that.
Yeah, like we're saying, well, yeah, it's my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It is crazy, dude.
But that's what I mean. Things keep changing. Every region's different. Every deal is different.
Yes.
So you never know
Yes.
what you're kind of going into. And as we go into 2024, venues are still closing. That's just a cycle of things, too. We can't continue to blame it on COVID because those venues may have closed anyway. You don't know, right?
Yes.
But it just goes to show that either the scene itself is having a tough time because people aren't coming out. They're not paying for shows. They're not staying for bands. Bands don't have a place to play. You have limitations in where you can play, what you can do. So what does that mean? That means, 25,000 bands are fighting to play the same two places in that region. Well, there's going to be a lot of bands that don't have places to play. So what do bands do? What do we do? I recently just had a show canceled last minute. The venue had an internal issue, financial type thing, and they had to kind of close their doors. Okay, I understand it. Whatever, we'll make the best of it for that time. But what does that mean for the future? One, because that was a place that we would put on our schedule each year. We've played national shows there as well as other shows over the years. It was a very nice venue. And that's not part of our local scene, like local scene. It's part of our extended scene. How does that affect us, and how does that affect bands within that local community now? Think about it.
Yeah.
And this is happening everywhere. What does that mean for the scene? Like, the scene is disappearing. I mean, how many venues you know that, one, have converted to cover and tribute acts primarily, but then they've also brought in, like, Magic Mike shows, wrestling. I mean, we're talking about, bar venues that have brought in these kind of entertainment options as opposed to original music.
Yeah.
So where does that leave all those bands? There's still bands coming up, new bands, old bands, whatever, collaboration bands, guys in multiple bands, which to me still baffles me. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I really don't. I mean, I sometimes find, like I'm saying, I have one band, and I've done side projects, but nothing where it involved me doing much else other than writing and recording, which I normally do anyway. That's easy to schedule,
right.
But playing out, photo shoots, this kind of, it's crazy. Like with one band, I'm like, I don't even know if I can do this. Like am I going to be able to finish this? So more power to you guys that are, like, I've met guys that are in like 15 bands. Like,
I know a couple guys that are in more than one
it's like,
band.
oh my God. I mean, they got bands that they do their passion music with, and they have ones that where they're making money with, and then ones that it's kind of like experimental and, and whatever. It's like, my God, man. I couldn't do it. I'm going to be honest with you. But anyway, so where does that leave everybody? What do we do? Do we go back to do-it-yourself shows? And, they're tough. They're tough.
Yeah,
Sounds is
tough.
always rough. And there's also, if you think about it, there's also a liability issue. Because where are you hosting them? You don't want anybody getting hurt. No fans, no bands. Right. You don't want, at least with the legitimate venue, there is some control. That's just at least what you hope, right? There's some insurance that the show's going to go off, that people are going to be safe, that there isn't going to be, whatever. There is some respectability there in terms of people are going to act a certain way. These do-it-yourself things, there's no security, there's no repercussions, and you don't know who's coming. It's just kind of craziness. Let alone, they're hard for people to pull off. Do they happen? Absolutely they happen. But for the most part, I mean, how many do-it-yourself shows have you done that been so stellar, you're like, hey, let's do this again?
Yeah, in my entire career, not many. I could count on one hand. Less than one hand. Like less than one full hand I've done DIY shows.
Right,
been phenomenal.
Yeah. I did a house party one time, and that was amazing. But the circumstances, the situation where we were jammed up in this old-time rock formation basement was just nuts. And, like, God forbid, there was one way in, one way out, something would have happened.
Right.
We wouldn't have got out. That's what I mean.
Right.
But it was a fantastic show. Would I do it again in a heartbeat? I don't know. I'd have to really think about it.
Yeah.
But I've been to some of those other do-it-yourself things. One band always plays like an hour longer than everybody else, and then you're like, it's just crazy stuff. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the way. If that's the kind of shows you want to do, that's great. Do it. But I think if it's a band that's looking to do more of substance in terms of their profession, in terms of how they want their career to pan out, then playing legitimate venues is key. Because again, I can't book Madison Square Garden or, the Wells Fargo Center or any of those type places. It just isn't going to happen. So I need that middle ground. You need that middle ground. Bands like us, guys, indie in the trench artists, need those middle ground venues to be able to perform and to be able to sell our merch at 100% of the profit. That isn't much anyway that we should be able to keep. Because the 20% that they're taking is our profit. We're just basically now just making our costs back. Now, again, I know we talked about in an episode that breaking even is a plus, but your merch, you should be making something on it. You should be making something, 10%, 5%. There should be something a little bit more coming in from there. And then when venues are taking that, a piece of that, that's even worse. And again, I know that runs a gamut. It's not everywhere. I hear that more often when we're supporting a national act than just playing, like we go into a town or a region and we're playing basically a local venue. Like we talked about this before, local venues are basically bars with a stage. Right. Usually they don't touch any of your merch because they're getting straight bar sales. They're usually making pretty well there. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm telling you, you should be throwing around more of your star power and fixing that problem, will you?
Listen, the big stars can't even do it. I mean,
Well, you haven't gotten involved yet. You know what I'm saying? You got muscle in there. Come
See
here.
what I can do.
Yeah, yeah, and get that get that Philly documentary going too, will you?
I'll have my people call Taylor Swift's people, and we'll figure it out.
There you go.
She's going to have to be the one to make the change. Like, she's going to have to be at this point in 2024.
Yeah.
She's going to have to go. Listen, this is the way it's going to be, and that's the only way venues will change. Like right now,
everything hinges on Taylor Swift. You're right.
It does. If her and Pink, who are like killing it right now, stood together and said, "Listen, we're not doing any shows until these things change," shit will change. It's just how it's going to be.
I guess you're right.
What does she make? Person of the year? I mean, come on. If anybody's going to be able to change stuff, she's going to be the one to do it.
You can save metal.
She can. She can. Because we can't.
Yeah.
Maybe Metallica. Maybe they stood up. But they, they're smart anyway. They do their own thing. But maybe Metallica could stand up and go, "Listen, we're not doing these shows anymore until these cuts of merch change." I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. Well, listen, you know what? Here's the thing. It doesn't matter for them because they're probably selling merch out the wazoo on their websites and stuff like that.
Course,
so it's, how much is it affecting them? I don't, probably not that much. But every little bit counts for guys like us, for bands like us. And so if you start nickel and diming that, you got nothing at the end of the day.
If you let's just throw a number out there. Like if Taylor Swift, let's just say, I know she does way more, but let's just say if she could sell $1 million worth of merch on just one normal show, and she knows it, but she can't because people are taking money. You know what I mean? Like, I could have $1 million more, but you keep taking money, so now I'm only going to have $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, That's when you got to stand up and go, hold on now. But, she's probably so far removed from that stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying, I'm just using her as an example, but, a lot of these big acts, I don't necessarily know how close they are to the merch thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think some have an idea, and then the old idea is that the talent never knew what was going on anyway. But I think some of the smarter people,
so many moving parts.
Some of the smarter individuals, kind of like, let's use Kiss as an example, because Gene seemed to always have his thumb on the merch.
Yeah.
You look at some of them old interviews with Bill Aucoin in the late 70s, they knew exactly what they were pulling in on merch.
Yeah.
And it was in the millions at the time, which, again, there's a band who changed how things were done. And, I mean, listen, everybody's going to have their hand in the pie. You have to, because the artist can't do it alone, right? They have to have a manufacturer, distributor. They have to have, people selling the merch, and there's all that set up. So I'm sure that they're paying out too, but like you were saying, all that kind of balances out.
Yeah.
That supply demand. It's not like people are banging down my door for Corners of Sanctuary t-shirts. You know what I mean? I can't give them away for $10. That's the problem,
Right.
you know. So to take 25% of that, now you're, I'm out $250 already, and I'm getting close to cost, if not cost, depending on which shirt it is. So
The problem is too, before we get into the episode, and I say this all the time, the problem is we all complain about how expensive merch is, but if we keep buying it, they're going to keep selling it at that price.
Right.
You really have to kind of make a stand to go, listen, we're not buying any more merch, and you don't want to do that to your favorite band. I mean, I totally get it. You just have to make a stand and go, I'm not paying this amount for merch, and then that's when it will come down. But if I don't pay for it, the person behind me will. So,
right.
So it's a very catch-22 thing.
Yeah. How about those scalpers with the T-shirts? They got Venmo and Google Pay and
Doing Venmo, bro.
I mean, they don't even want cash anymore. They go, they're just trying to scan your phone, and I'm telling you, that's a racket, and nobody stops them.
Dude, no, nobody stops.
And they're
them.
not-
I know you have your opinions about it,
Yeah.
but nobody stops them like they used to.
No,
back
they
in the
used-
day.
yeah, they
back
used
in
to
the day. If
haul
you remember,
these-
these.
Yeah, they would
Dude,
haul
they used to
these
be
gold.
chased through the
Yep.
Spectrum parking lot.
Yep. Now, like you see them.
Now nobody.
There's the cop right there at the corner. He's directing traffic, and two people over him is the T-shirt guy.
If you remember, bro, like back in the day, you wouldn't see those bootleg guys till we got in the parking lot. Now these guys are standing right at the entrance. Like
Yep.
as soon as you leave, the guys are standing right at the door.
Yeah. Personally, I think that's just, if you can't beat them, get a piece of them. That's the way I think it is. I'm telling you. And the shirts are so much better. They're quality shirts. They're
Definitely
good
better than
prints.
it used to be.
I don't know. There's something fishy about it. Venmo, Google Pay, all that right there on the spot. That's professional criminals, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you're not criminals. I don't. Listen, more power to you, right? That's America. I'm saluting. Capitalism at its best.
Don't have cash? Here's my Venmo.
That's right. Here's my Venmo, and I can give you 2 shirts because they're $80 inside. You're getting them for $20 here. That's crazy.
It's Russ the Boss.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
All right, let's get to the topic of this show.
Yes, let's do it.
The topic of the show is winning over the crowd, converting fans to listeners. Winning over the crowd. Could be talking in a live performance. If you're not known in that area, not known in that venue, you're the odd man out of the lineup. Or, just converting casual fans, as they like to call them. And that's just people that maybe like your genre. They don't have a problem with your music, but they're not big supporters. How do you convert them to listeners? Casual fan to listeners. So winning over the crowd. What do you think, buddy? How have you won over the crowd?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story that really made me realize that winning the crowd is a thing that I have to be aware of. Back in my early days, I was just kind of like, hey, we're playing metal and, people are going to like it. And, I didn't really understand winning the crowd. But I'll tell you a little story. So back in the day, we as in local artists here in the Delaware Valley, we used to get played on a station called WYSP, 94.1 WYSP. It's the station where Howard Stern was. Anyway, so there used to be a show with Mel Toxic, who was a popular DJ here in Philly, and he used to do a show called Loud and Local. And if I remember correctly, I think it was Sunday nights. May have been like 11 to midnight. It was like late, but we all listened because we were always on. Myself, my band, all my friends' bands, like we were always on and we were always listening and support each other. And it's just what you did, right? So back then, Mel Toxic used to put these shows together. They'd be the Loud and Local shows. Sometimes it would be a Wednesday, sometimes it'd be a Thursday, sometimes it'd be a Sunday. And then if you were lucky enough, he would put together a Saturday night. Well, my first band, he was very kind to us. He liked us. He always put us on the shows. To this day, I still have friends of some of the bands that we played with. To this day, I still talk to them on a daily basis. And I have a lot of great memories. Well, anyway, the first time we played J.C. Dobbs, which was a huge club here in Philadelphia, who housed Nirvana and Sugar Ray when he was punk, and Korn came through. And it's a very small club, but it was very... J.C. Dobbs was like, you can Google it and see all the history of it. Anyway, so we played there. I believe it was a Wednesday or Thursday night. We were like the most extreme metal band of the bill, which that's what he used to do. He used to take some of his favorite bands and put us all in one bill. Everybody got along together, which was very cool. It didn't matter what music we played. Everybody got along so well. And I'll never forget it. We were going on last. It was 11 to midnight. I will never forget it. We stepped on stage and the place was jam-packed, because, back in the day, local shows used to bring people. And it was a Thursday on South Street in Philadelphia. And this place was packed because being loud and local, Mel Toxic always brought people. It didn't matter what venue we were at. The place always had people in it, always. And people stuck around for the most part. So we're like, all right, so we're setting up. We're getting ready to go on, and the place is packed. Dude, I will never forget it. We come into our first song. I am through the first verse, and we are killing it. We get out of the first chorus. We emptied the place completely out. There wasn't a soul left but the sound guy, Mel Toxic, and the bartender. Like, there was nobody in this building. It was amazing. We had cleared this place out. Now, I can't say if we were good or bad. I don't know. I was always a fan of what we did. We always got great compliments. I mean, still in 2024, sometimes I run into people and go, hey, I remember that band. Anyway, that is the first time I remember, okay, apparently winning the crowd is a thing. Because it's just something that you have to consider. And so ever since then, I've been very aware of our situation. Because at the time, I was like, hey, man, we're all together. We're all in this thing together, and it's going to be cool or whatever. Now I'm a little more aware of the people, the bands that we're with. You and I talked about a couple episodes ago about constructing the set list, which that falls into play, especially now because I'm in way heavier bands than I used to be. Do we construct our set list? Do we pick our kind of less extreme songs, depending on the crowd? And not that we have to, because, we're confident in what we do, but, sometimes you just have to do that. We talked about it before in an earlier episode. Do you put in a little more pizzazz in your set list? Do you pick a song that maybe has some cool guitar solos if you have one? Do you pick some songs that has a cool beat behind it where you're just not a band like us, we're not playing, a million beats per minute? So, to me, when I say, winning the crowd, I mean, that really could encompass anything. It could be the music. It could be how you interact with the crowd. It could be making sure you guys look like you're having a great time up there. Because I'm a firm believer in, if you look like you're having a great time, then you're going to have a great time. I mean, it is. I know a lot of people aren't Bret Michaels fans, which is fine. I'm a huge Bret Michaels guy. But the one thing I really love about going to see Bret live is he always looks like he is having the greatest time of his life. And it really sets the tone for you when he comes out of how that show is going to be. Everybody has seen bands before that just bring nothing to the table in terms of, sometimes you see bands and they don't even want to be there. Even in your most extreme metal, I mean, I've seen some extreme metal bands and they look like they're having a blast up there, and that makes you have a great time. It has to be a vibe. It has to be that energy that brings it. We talked about Kiss a couple episodes ago, the energy in the crowd, how cool it was. So winning over the crowd, I mean, that could be anything. There's a lot to that, what you could do to win over the crowd. Constructing a set list the right way, looking like you're having a good time, not berate the audience, cursing at them, which I've kind of curtailed my, language on stage a little bit as I've gotten older. I know there's it's funny. I talk to people through my career and some people don't care, but then there's people that are like, yeah, I'm not a big fan when the guy on stage goes, come on, MFers, like, let's do this. And you're like, did you just really curse him?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan. I
some
go,
people
what?
just don't dig it. Yeah, like, and I'm like, for me, I was like, well, that's cool, whatever, I get it. But I totally understand. I do pay more attention to that, and I try not to do that any longer. I did when I was younger because it was just a cool thing to do, but it doesn't. I know that's a big thing in the kind of genre that I'm in. Take it or leave it, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so, winning over the crowd, I mean, it really could be anything, right? I mean... Let
me ask you this. Has there ever been a situation, because I know you do play much heavier, sometimes faster music in some of the bands. Is there ever been a time where you're playing, you start your set, and the crowd's kind of like stunned and you're not getting anything, but somehow you get them? Like, winning over the crowd is like they're not sure how to take you, they're staring at you, you're not getting much input, but maybe by the third or fourth song, all of a sudden you're starting to see people kind of start to get into it. Have you ever had that experience? And if so, what do you feel you did differently?
Yes, to answer your question, I have. I definitely have, with both of my current bands, to be completely honest, especially in, Seeds of Perdition, because we are such extreme, but our songs we're not playing a million miles an hour. It's very guitar and groove oriented. And, I've said it before many times. I've said in interviews, I'm so lucky to be surrounded by talented people that can write good music. In all the years I've been with Seeds has definitely been, and I've only been in Execution Order a short time, but we've won a few crowds over. But with Seeds, especially because I have such a long tenure with them, we've definitely won many crowds over because we aren't as we have a lot of groove. Like there's a little more body to what we're doing. There's some lead work and there's some groove stuff. Not every song is fast and a million miles an hour. And so we definitely have, to answer your question, yes, I have had the pleasure, and it's been with 2 current bands that I'm in now. I really stick out to me when it comes to winning crowds over.
Okay.
I'm not even going to ask you that because I know you guys have, because you guys are in such a category, of what you do. You guys have your own sound in the scene that we're in. So I know, and I've seen it. I've seen you guys win crowds over.
It's a tough thing, but what I've allowed the band to do is just be itself.
Right.
We do. We have such a throwback niche style, but it's not throwback so much that it's dated. There's a feeling at times, right? Because we've hit a certain nostalgia sound, and that's by design. I mean, it's really the music that resonates with me. So the popularity of it, it's very small. Yet, it's liked worldwide. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Because
100%.
it's not mainstream. A lot of times we're the odd band out in the lineups because of that sound, right? And oftentimes we hit the stage, we do our thing, and Frankie is very animated, which I'm very grateful for. He's, as a singer, he's dynamic vocally, but also visually. It's just something that it resonates with him, and that's definitely an eye catcher. And normally in our set, we'll hit with a short intro, then we do 3 songs right in a row. They dovetail right into one another. Again, we constructed it that way. And it's sometimes not until that 4th song, again, if we're the odd band out, we see the listeners, the audience, change. The energy changes and the acceptance of what we're doing starts to be highlighted. So I've understood, listen, I've played places too where we drove out the crowd. And then basically all that's left is the bartender and the sound person. And you're like, okay, because either you were wrongly booked, you were like, people were expecting more of a jukebox type of background or whatever, it's the timing, whatever. And so I realized early on how that is important. So we always talked about we have to read the room. And we've done things where we've altered the set on the fly because we're watching the crowd going, listen, this song isn't going to work here. We can't do it. It's either too heavy, it's too slow, it's too light. Early on when we were booked primarily with super heavy bands because they had no idea where to even put us. Nobody was in this area was playing that kind of stuff. So we learned early on, kind of like it was trial by fire. It's like, all right, we got to hit the heavier one, whatever heavier was for us. And if it wasn't heavy in those terms, right, and again, that's subjective, we just go, we got to bring up the tempo. Because sometimes speed is depicted as heavier. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
100%.
That may not be the truth in it, but I'm just telling you how you see people hit, or, hey, hit that snare harder. Whatever.
Yeah.
Pluck them strings a little harder. Throw a couple high notes in there. All of a sudden, you're a super heavy band. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
So, but there's been times, and I think I've told this story before on the air. It's like, and it happened not very long ago again. Like you're reading the room, and you're playing the song, and you realize that the song for this crowd right now at this moment needs to be just a little faster. So I'm aware of that. Like, I have to be aware of that. Like, if you're not aware of what's happening on stage, musically, how everybody's playing, where everybody's parts are, stuff like that, one, you're not there. You're not in the moment, especially as a guitar player. So when I cut my teeth in this business, I was always a rhythm guitar player. So I was responsible for the bass and the drums in terms of we keep this unit together. And then the lead guitar player back in the 80s, they pretty much did whatever they wanted, and you had to kind of make sure everything else stayed in key behind them, right? So I got used to that. So, like, I look at the drummer, and I go, and I give him a nod that say, hey, we need to just, next round, bring this up just a couple clicks. Let's see where this goes. And it changes. It changes the flow on stage. And again, not going from 0 to 60 because, again, that could affect your singer. That could really throw off the crowd. So you're talking about a couple clicks just to kind of ease into it. They did this experiment, too. Say you're listening to a book being read to you. And over time, the audio is sped up. But you're not aware of it as you're engrossed into listening to it. By the end, it's actually, all of a sudden, if you take away and come back, you're hearing the voice completely different. It's super high.
Yeah.
You don't understand anything that they're saying because you can't go from one to the other and then have this smooth transition. But if you do it over time, gradually, your mind is able to take in the process. Your mind takes in all this stuff at one time, but processing it to us as, so that we're cognitive of it, understanding of it, that's a whole different thing. So to do that to the audience would be very difficult as well. You could do it when you stop a song and the next song, okay, we're jamming this one a lot faster. But doing it midstream, that could be disaster for everybody. So reading the room is definitely key. But yeah, we've experienced it multiple times being the type of band, the type of music style we are, that we've had to work to win the crowd over. And that doesn't mean that we're breathing fire or trying to hang ourselves on stage for a visual thing. It's really about playing the music as you see fit for that moment. I mean, sometimes you got to let the music breathe and give it to what it is. I found that if you go in unassuming, you go to that underdog type of thing, you don't come around being cocky and stuff like that. You can find that the music itself does the job it's supposed to do. I find that to be very important, because if the music isn't doing it, like you said, you can be belligerent on stage and you can put people off from it. Anytime they start getting that way on stage, I completely lose it. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's like,
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
But yeah, it's a tough thing. I think reading the room, like you said, you got to be aware of that crowd thing. And it could be simply showing that you're having a good time or seeing that you're as intense as the music is coming off. I think the crowd can feel that. I mean, we've had some shows where when you've won over the crowd, you feel so accomplished. And you could have made... Yes. I'm not saying that you played perfectly, because mistakes or whatever. It doesn't matter about the mistake. You can make mistakes and the passion is still evident.
I think it also, even if you don't win over the crowd, and sometimes it has nothing to do with what you're doing as an artist or a band or an act. Like, sometimes it's just that room. Sometimes it's that place. I mean, I've also have played places where we should have won over the room and we just didn't. And maybe because the vibe, maybe, just people just weren't into what we were doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we were bad at what we were doing. It's just one of those things. So, even if you don't win over the room, sometimes it has nothing to do with how you played or what you play. Sometimes it's just one of those things that you're in a situation where not everybody in the room is into what you're doing.
Absolutely. I agree. Like I said, I've played where we were contracted to play. I think that the attendees were hoping more for background music and not something that, because they wanted to talk or whatever, socialize. Right. And the music just didn't fit that bill. We played great, at least in my opinion, but it, like you said, that doesn't necessarily have to shine on, this band's terrible.
Right.
Though there may be people that interpret that like, I didn't like that. So in their head, I didn't like it. It's terrible. But that may not be the case at all. And there's different things that could be throwing people off. And we've talked about this before. I played with bands that musically, everything was great, but the vocals were terrible. Or
that too,
how they conducted themselves in between sets, or what the singer was saying, just kind of threw things off. Or it could be anything. But I go back to what you're saying about having that awareness. It's not just awareness for the individual; it's awareness for everything. I think that's important to a band, because if you're not, and you're oblivious, you never know what you're doing. You never know where you're going.
You definitely have to be aware, for sure.
There is something to say. If you can win a crowd over with your music alone, that's something, in my opinion, listen, you may never be Metallica, but it doesn't matter. It's that you're connecting, like you've always said, one fan at a time. And if you connect it with one person, you won over one brand new person, right? Because chances are, for us, at every show, there's got to be at least one person that's never heard of you, never heard of your music, didn't even know you were on the bill, had no idea, didn't care. But after you got done playing, you made an impact. And to me, that's one of the most exciting things. Like, got guys that come over to the merch table and go, never heard of you guys. Had no idea that you guys were on the show. You impressed me. Do you have something that has some of the music? I always feel compelled to give it to them as cheap as possible because it's like, wow, that's,
Yep.
you know, like, thank you. You've already paid me, in a sense. Right? That's
100%.
The dumb
100%.
artist.
Yep.
The dumb non-business artist, right? But anyway,
Yep.
that's, wow, I did my job. Like, the music did its job. Like, somebody else
Yep.
gets it. You feel one less inkling alone because there's somebody else. Okay, they get it. That's awesome. Like you talked about before, it's that little thing that fuels you for the next 50 that suck. You know?
You go, hey man, remember that one guy 26 shows ago?
yeah, man. You know what I mean? There's got to be another one. It's crazy.
It's true though, bro. It really is. It's so true, you know. And I understand. Like maybe there are some people that are listening that are going, well, you know, I do what I do, and I don't care what other people think. And listen, I totally understand that. But wouldn't it be nice if you just, like Mick said, just win one person over? And you will. And you know, if you just think of the situation correctly, read the room. If you leave with one person, then you're ahead of the game, and that's the ultimate goal, right? And still be true to what you're doing and who you are. You don't have to change anything. You just make little tweaks, and people will follow.
I'm going to venture to say, because I personally believe in this, that the ability to do that, to win over the crowd, goes far back to other episodes that we've done in how you present the band, the professionalism, the type or quality of the music that you're playing. And that means, is it relatable enough? You could be doing what you want to do, but is it relatable enough that it would connect energetically, spiritually, however, to somebody else? Is it, like you're saying, so experimental that you're not even sure how to connect with it? Not to say that you shouldn't be doing that. You do what your heart says to do. But if you're looking for, like what Chris is saying, some of that outside connection, well, you may have to curtail some stuff. But it also goes back to how the band delivers the music, the quality of your rehearsals, pretty much everything that we've talked about in 6 seasons. You want to stack the deck in your favor. If you're going into a show and there's the possibility that they may not, there's always the possibility that they may not like you. They have no interest in your whatever. But if you're stacking the deck in your favor, then you know that the music's always going to deliver.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody in the crowd that you can quickly become a supporter. That's my opinion. I've seen it. If there's people out there, we've all chased audiences away. In this music scene, in the metal music scene,
it is.
You can easily fall into that category. And I've done it plenty of times. To say I haven't would be a lie. I've won over crowds, and I've sent them running to the hills, right? Where I could hear Bruce Dickinson in the back as they're running. That's how much the stampede was. I've had people stay all the way in the back of the bar or the venue, and I'm playing in front of an empty front. Hey, anybody want to come up front? And you just got people, they look up at the bar and they come back down. And then later on, you're in the urinal and guy goes, man, I loved your set. I'm like, well, where were you, man? The spotlight was so bright. But I really do think it goes back to what you're doing, how you're doing it, the delivery. And that's all part of that awareness, how you're rehearsing it, what you're putting together, maybe the look, how you interact, or how your singer. I don't like bands, in my opinion, where they say there's 4 or 5 guys up there and 4 or 5 guys are interacting with the audience while on stage. I just think that that's really not cohesive. I think one person should be the ringleader. And I just recently read an interview with Paul Stanley that he never wanted to be that. Like, he did, but he never felt confident enough to be that guy. But he became that guy, and it became something that empowered him. As vocal as we know Gene Simmons to be, he never wanted to do it. He didn't want to be the person that talked on stage. Part of it became he wanted to keep that persona as the demon, so it kept people on that edge of their seat. And even now, right? You and I seen, it's very minimum, almost nothing. But it's
almost nothing.
Yeah, and they've stuck with that model, and the crowd loves it. I think having 6 or 7 guys all trying to compete for attention with the audience is nuts. It takes away from the music. Listen, we've talked about this privately. We've been on shows together We've been with bands. You're watching 5 guys competing with one another and the music suffers. When you got bass players standing in front of the singer, and guitar players are trying to, oh, look at me, that type of thing, and then your drummers, that's just craziness, man. That's not the unity or the cohesiveness of the unit, and it takes away from the music. I've seen it because I connect with the music. Sometimes I don't have to connect with the band visually if I can connect with the music.
Yeah.
Because you can't judge a book by its cover. I mean, you don't know how these bands are going to...
Yeah.
I don't have much style myself. I'm not a very stylistic type of guy in dress and stuff like that. And when you're the size of a hobbit, it's like your clothes choices are limited, right? So, it's either super baggy or, you're wearing stuff for 10-year-olds. But anyway, my point is so I try not to look at the visual, and I want to hear how the music comes in. If your music isn't good and your look is horrible, and then you have all this commotion going on stage, I think that really detracts then for an audience that may look to connect with that. Am I the typical audience? Absolutely not. I got pet peeves.
You're right.
But I'm also coming at it as an artist myself.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's that, you have that certain eye, that judgment eye. I hate to use that word. But then you're comparing it to yourself. Well, man, am I doing that? Maybe I shouldn't do that. Right. And then you start processing this, trying to watch another band, and you're processing this own thing. We were down in Baltimore watching Kiss, and I'm going, oh, I wonder if we could do something like that. I wonder how that would work. You know what I mean? Could I get Frank on a grappling hook and get him across the club? What you said, being aware, reading the crowd, playing to the room, I think is important. That also shows that you care, that you're engaged, that you kind of know what the audience wants, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean,
that's 100%.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody can do it immediately. If you have a limited set, then you have a limited set. Maybe play around with how the song, like Chris was saying, maybe this song should be sooner in the set and this song's later in the set. Over time, you'll have a bigger set. And you should be prepared to do a number of different songs in the event that, one, you got to change up the set on the fly. You never know. You realize this song isn't going to work here. Maybe this will. Or they cut your set, or they want you to play longer. I've been on bills. I'm playing. The owner comes up to the side of the stage, or the stage manager guy, whatever, even the sound guy, who'll give me that sign to keep playing, maybe 3 more songs, 2 more songs. For whatever reason, doesn't matter. They're hoping that more people come. The National isn't there yet. All of a sudden, they got intestinal issues from the fried chicken that they had down the road. Who knows? Who cares? It's an opportunity for you to play.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it goes back to everything we've talked about in the show about how you conduct yourself as a band, as a unit, as a business, as a brand. That will reflect on your music. And I just had a conversation with my band. They were talking about one venue that we just recently played a couple months back, and the one member said, man, the place was so unprofessional. It was so difficult to get anything accomplished there. Like, they let the bands dictate what was happening, and you know how that goes. You let the bands dictate, it's chaos. And the sound was struggling, and this, that, and the other thing. And I says, I agree with you. I says, chances are we probably won't play the venue again unless they fix all of these little things. Simply because it just wasn't worth the aggravation and what we had to deal with over the course of the 6 hours, right? But I said, but we did what we were supposed to do. We played professionally, and it was noticed. We went in, they were already running behind. None of the other bands refused to cut their set. We did. The crowd appreciated that. I said, we won the crowd that night. I go, we won the crowd that night over every other band, and I seen it. I says, even the headliner that wound up going on, they drove people out because it got too late. They were playing a boring set, and they continued to play even though the place started to empty out. They did not curtail and play to the crowd. And I says, so we did what we had to do, and that plays to future. I go, sometimes, the saying is you're only good as the show that's coming up, right, for the promo. But a good show is a good show, and that will carry on to the next show. It will carry your reputation on to the next several shows, or when you come back around. So it's important that whatever you do the best that you can do that night, that show. And if that means working to win over the crowd, even if it's 2 people, that's what you need to do. That's part of the brand. That's part of the business. Otherwise, you just go up there, you play, you don't care. It doesn't matter about your sound, what you look like, how well you're rehearsed. What are you getting out of this? Is it just an ego thing?
Right.
Or are you really trying to do something with the music? And being, like Chris said, being aware of that audience is crucial. Because without the audience, as a band, as an artist, what do you have? You just have a bunch of files on your hard drive doing nothing.
Yep.
What do you think, Bud? You got anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good. I think I said what I had to say.
Awesome. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmickvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice. You can find The Cosmick Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmickvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to the Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.